I'm Jennifer, and welcome to Crew of Japan podcast, a weekly podcast where we take you on audio journeys through Japanese culture. Welcome back to our podcast. Today we're going to go back in time and discuss anime from the past. I'm with my crew, Nigel and Maddie. Yo!
Hey!
What's up?
Okay, guys, so we are going to talk about the nostalgic anime. And nostalgia to us is not the same as nostalgia to like someone born in a later time period. But I have it categorized as nostalgia because, you know, these are anime that, you know, not a lot of people may know about from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I really do want to name it nostalgia for that reason.
Definitely. A very underappreciated era.
Very much so. Very much so.
So the anime we're talking about in this episode is from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Are we saying that the anime mentioned here is the greatest anime of all time?
That's the thing. Yeah. So each generation of anime has, you know, the great of the great for anime. So when I say, you know, the greatest anime of all time from the nostalgia period, what I'm talking about is anime that really stood out in this period of time, and where if you were to go on a street right now, find an anime fan and be like, yo, did you watch, I don't know, Mobile Suit Gundam? You would have someone be like, yeah, I love that. And then maybe you would start a conversation on Gundam. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for with this episode. We have a plan of putting this into 3 parts. And so I really want to have every kind of generation of anime have its significant spotlight.
And so what are the other 2 parts that we're doing?
The other 2 parts in the future that we'll be doing is part 2 is going to be the golden age, which I will explain later in this episode, the difference between that golden age and this nostalgia period. And then the third part we're going to discuss is just modern day anime, which hasn't really made its significance yet.
Or you may disagree with that.
Yeah, it depends. Like I said, it's very much a generational thing. You know, you may have, you know, 1 or 2 anime that's like really distinguished right now in today's like anime, but it doesn't compare right now to the nostalgia or golden era of anime.
That's true. They haven't really had the time to make their impact yet.
Exactly.
At the same time, I think it is interesting because we do live in a time period where the highest grossing movie of all time in Japan is a modern day anime.
Correctamundo.
Which one?
Demon Slayer.
Demon Slayer, really?
Yes.
It dethroned Spirited Away
It did.
late last year.
I did not know
Not only did it do well in Japanese theaters, but right now South Korea is doing something where it's boycotting all Japanese products. Guess what? They're not boycotting. They're not boycotting Demon Slayer in theaters.
Everything but Demon Slayer.
Exactly. Demon Slayer right now is like the thing. But I digress. We're not talking about Demon Slayer this episode. We're going to talk about that nostalgia in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And how I want to start this episode is really, how do we know today the beginnings of anime? And I think we can all agree that the beginning of anime started with Astro Boy.
Yep. I mean, maybe it wasn't the first, but hands down, that's what I think of when I think of anime from the beginning.
Right, so there may have been a few forms of animation that existed before, but this was the first cartoon produced to air in Japan on Japanese television.
Wow. So 1963 from day one is the birth year of anime.
Yes. Now there is a counter to that. You know, if you go online, you really dig deep and search. The reason why I say that Astro Boy can be considered the first anime is because if we define what an anime clearly is from modern terminology, we can identify that anime is a TV series with plot and is aired on TV. Am I correct? Do y'all agree?
Yeah, specifically from Japan also, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
One of the things that also set Astro Boy apart is that its creator coined the term anime for it.
Yeah.
So I think that that's also why I would say that is the first.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
default, it's kind of the first one to ever be an actual anime.
Correct. But there are two quote unquote anime out there that could possibly debunk this, but it's still not too valid. There were two anime that predate Astro Boy. One is called Haku Jaden. It was created in like 1958. It's super like old animation. There's no real like plot to it. It was never really, I don't think it was aired on TV. And then you have another anime from like 1962. It was called like a Otogi manga calendar. These two predate Astro Boy, but they don't meet those criteria that I just said, where it's on TV and it has plot and it's like a serialization of a series. So that's why I say, the importance of Astro Boy is just so significant and it cannot be ignored and it must be acknowledged.
Yeah, because in a way it created, I mean, obviously within anime we have genres, but anime itself is a genre of cartoon, or that zone of TV.
Astro Boy left such an important mark on anime that can still be felt today. And so some of those things are the big eyes, the big hair, the freeze frame moments, the animation that doesn't quite seem as fluid, but it's visually interesting and it still works and your eyes are drawn to it. Those things can all be traced back to that very first airing of Astro Boy.
That's crazy to think that even the style itself has come from this one trailblazing show.
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely see it. I mean, if you can't see it, you're ignoring something, because I mean, it's so like in your face that all these qualities that we know of anime today, it really came from Astro Boy.
Yeah, so have either of you had a chance to actually see that first episode?
I watched it a really, really, really long time ago. I must have been in like sophomore year of high school.
Same. It's been quite a while for me. So, I mean, Nigel, if you know about Astro Boy, go ahead and take it over, because that's not my jam.
Yeah, so, I think we all probably saw it and didn't realize we were seeing it. Back in the early to mid 2000s, Cartoon Network actually was able to gain some type of license, and they aired the original series of it. I believe it was only the first like 50 episodes, but they aired it on Toonami.
Oh yeah, Toonami is the best.
Yeah, so we probably all saw it.
I believe it.
Yeah, so the very first episode of Astro Boy, imagine this, all right? We open, it's the year 2000. We're in Tokyo. A kid is driving and there's flying cars and he's flying around and speeding through this metropolitan city. And all of a sudden he gets in a car crash and he is unfortunately killed. So his father rushes to the scene and finds him, and overcome with grief, he decides he's going to build a robotic version of his son. Well, he does that. He's super successful. He creates this little boy who seems to be able to do math problems faster than you can write them. He can do science and chemistry, these things like it's nothing. So the father ends up becoming upset over the years because his new robotic son does not seem to be able to grow. So pretty tragically, he ends up selling his robotic son to a circus.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a really tragic moment in the first episode, and I think it's made even worse by the grief and sadness of his robotic son, Astro Boy, or actually as they called it then, Mighty Atom.
That's right, it had a different name entirely.
Yeah, it didn't get the name Astro Boy until they brought it to the United States. It picks up with him selling his son to a circus. It is heartbreaking. And the robotic boy ends up having to fight his way through like a tournament in a circus. What ends up happening in the circus is these different robots are pit against each other to fight to the death. Well, Mighty Atom, or Astro Boy, doesn't really like to fight, and he's more of a peace-loving robot. And what ends up happening is a scientist ends up finding Astro Boy and sees the virtue and the value in him.
Aww.
And he frees him from the circus along with some of his robotic pals that he's made. And the robots end up gaining their freedom, and they're able to live like humans now.
It's gripping for a first episode.
Yeah, if that's not plot, I don't know what is.
Isn't it?
A true anime.
Yeah. So it aired New Year's Day, 1963 in Japan. It later aired in the summer of 1963 in the United States.
That's pretty quick for the 60s.
Yeah, apparently what happened was one of the employees at NBC was in Japan and came across an airing of Mighty Atom while in his hotel room. He then goes back to the United States and says, hey, we got to pick up this show. It's really, really interesting. I think kids will like it. But number one, it's cheap. So one of the reasons it was cheap was because of the small budget on producing it. That the minimalization of the animation style really led to a cheaper cost in producing the show. So NBC liked it because it was cheap, and they picked it up and they started airing it in local stations within the United States.
Now, did they come up with a dub at that point?
Yes, they did.
Cool.
They came up with the dub, and unfortunately, as a result of that, many things actually end up being censored in the show.
Of course.
Yeah, and that opens a whole can of worms about censorship in anime.
Oh yeah, anime and censorship are such good friends, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to explore that in a future episode. But one of the early critics of the censorship was actually Osamu Tezuka, who was the creator of Astro Boy. So quite interesting dynamic, and like I said, maybe we'll explore that further in future episodes. But within the US, Astro Boy was actually pretty popular within the communities that it aired in. There's actually a statistic out there that in the summer of 1963, it actually beat out the Mickey Mouse Club, which was the top animation.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, Astro Boy over little Mickey.
I know, that's crazy to think of. And I think probably my favorite piece of trivia or random fact about Astro Boy in the US was that Stanley Kubrick actually was a huge fan of it, and he actually invited Osamu Tezuka to the United States to help him work on 2001: A Space Odyssey. Unfortunately, that never happened, but it would have been very interesting to see what type of imprint Tezuka would have left on 2001: Space Odyssey. I mean, it went on to become a classic film anyway, but just imagine what type of mark Tezuka would have left.
Probably would have been zanier.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to know that not only was Astro Boy kind of like the first anime for Japan, but kind of the first anime for the US too.
Yeah. That's incredible to learn that. I didn't realize that they aired at the same year in both countries.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Okay, well, Nigel, I have a trivia question for you then.
Uh-oh.
Did you know that there's actually an anime that transcends time right now as we speak?
Probably One Piece, because it's been going on forever.
No, One Piece is actually a 90s anime. So no, it's not One Piece.
Gundam?
No, there's actually one anime that aired in 1969. It's still ongoing today.
What?
Oh my god, wait, just give me I want to think about it for 2 more seconds. Is it something like that we would definitely know?
Probably not. You would have to be a huge anime fan to know this series, because it's not really popular in the US, but it's very popular in Japan.
Tell us.
Okay, I'm gonna give it to you. So it's an anime called Sazae-san. It's kind of like a family-esque anime. It revolves around this family, and you get to see like the family aspect of this like Japanese family, and you would think that wouldn't be able to go on for so long, but it has.
You know, now that you mention that, I have seen that before, but I had no idea that it's been around that long.
So it's just like a classic household, like almost like an anime sitcom.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's beloved by Japan. I mean, it's still used today. Sometimes when Japanese like have to advertise something, sometimes they'll use the characters from that anime to advertise either their product or service or whatever it is that they're advertising.
Wow, it's just like so ingrained in the culture at this point.
Yeah, and I have no idea when this anime is going to end either.
Maybe never.
That's really cool. So from Astro Boy, we know Astro Boy is kind of the first really big anime, and it's the first one that really also bridged the gap between Japan and the US. What are some notable ones that came after?
Now, this is where we're going to start geeking out, guys. You just hit the mark here. I'll go first because there are two like really big ones that stand out to me, but I feel like only one is possibly recognized throughout the US. And my first one is going to be Saint Seiya. Do y'all know what that is?
I have never heard of that one.
What?
Yeah, I think.
I'm Googling it right now to check.
Oh my God, guys, I'm so sad.
Oh no, the Knights of the Zodiac. I have
Yes.
heard this one. Okay.
Okay.
I just didn't recognize it from you saying
Yes.
it.
Oh my gosh, I
haven't
almost had a heart
seen it,
attack.
but I have heard of it.
Oh my gosh, it's an amazing anime. It was from it's from the 80s, and it's about these knights. In English they call them knights, in Japanese they're called saints, and they, help out Athena, protecting the earth from evil. It's so good. You can kind of imagine it as like Power Rangers / Magical Girl, but instead of girls, boys.
Love that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I've seen this anime, but never actually really invested a lot of time into it. I actually have seen a few episodes of this now that I look at it.
Yeah, I will admit the anime is pretty long. Nowadays, anime is like 12, 24 episodes. This is like in the hundreds, so it may be hard. Yeah, it may be hard for some people to watch it, because I remember when I would tell people that I like Inuyasha, they would, rag on me because it was so long. So fair warning, Saint Seiya is pretty long, at least the original from the 80s is. And I will say the first half is way more entertaining than the second half.
Really?
Yeah, because the first half, you're seeing it all for the first time, and everything's new. And then the second half, they kind of recycle the whole anime, it seems like, just a different setting. So it's really weird. You would have to watch it to understand what I'm talking about, but it's pretty much put in two segments that you could separate the anime in, and if you had to watch it, definitely check out the first segment. But it's pretty good anime, and I feel like it's pretty well known.
Yeah, I've definitely been exposed to it before.
And then my second anime that I kind of wanted to bring a spotlight to, and it's definitely not popular at all. It's never been on like Toonami or anything like that. I just kind of came across it and just fell in love with it. And it's the shoujoiest of shoujo anime that you could think of. So Nigel, you may not know this one, but it's called, the English of it is called Rose of Versailles. It's French, so excuse my pronunciation.
Versailles.
Yes, there we go. Okay, Maddie knows what I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah, it's such a good anime. It's about the time period of the French Revolution, before and during. And, it deals with Marie Antoinette, which was the queen of that time. And it's this character, her name is Lady Oscar, and her father taught her how to ride horses and sword fight and all this typical knightly kind of things. And it's a really good shoujo anime. If you're looking for like classic shoujo from the time period, this is a really good one that I found one day, and I'm really glad I did.
I'm gonna have to give this a watch because I can't tell you how many times I've had to learn about the French Revolution, and I would love to see this time period from a Japanese anime perspective.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by anime that combined like historical events. I don't know why. I just find it so fascinating. So the fact that they went and did something with the French Revolution, that was so interesting. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the art is old. Obviously, it's from the 80s, but the art's still really good. So good that I even have an art book for the series. So
wow.
yeah, it's so good. Oh my gosh, and it doesn't get enough recognition because it's so old.
They have those big sparkly eyes and all that.
It actually takes place in France?
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. During my time in film school and studying Japanese film, I actually came across a film called La Fin du règne de Louis XVI, which translates to the end of Louis XVI's reign. And
The film depicted the French Revolution, and it was actually banned in Japan.
Was it really?
yeah, so this film comes out in the early 1900s in Japan, and it became a problem because King Louis XVI claimed to be of divine descent in order to rule. But this is a problem because the emperor is of divine descent.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so they couldn't have two people claiming a divine right to rule. So they actually end up banning the film. And there was a later American import of the film, which completely changed the story. It was the same film, but at this time, you didn't actually have dialogue. You had people called benshis who narrated and told the story to the audience who was there. And you only saw the pictures and heard the music. And so the benshis changed the story and said, oh, this actually is an American story. It takes place in America. And the king of France was actually like some guy who was a rebel who was trying to overthrow a state, So
Speaking of censorship.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh my gosh.
yeah. So that's interesting that this anime actually years later is embracing and depicting the French Revolution. So
But yeah, those are my two like standout ones. I mean, I could go on, but I mean, we would never have enough time to ever talk about anime.
See, for me, when I think of the era, the first thing that comes to mind is Ghibli movies by far. Like, that's what I have the most familiarity with. Like, that was what was sprinkled throughout my childhood.
That is so true. What are some significant ones from that time period, Maddie, that you could probably
Oh my
share with
God.
us?
Yeah, where to start? Kiki's Delivery Service, My Neighbor
Yes.
Totoro, Grave of Fireflies, I think came out in that era. What else? Oh, Nausicaa. Just so many classic movies that I think really like challenged or looked different, I guess, than all the other anime coming out at the time.
Well, definitely, because I mean, I'm not a professional from the anime industry, but I would assume that the Ghibli movies definitely probably had more budget than your typical anime.
Oh yeah, 100%. And definitely like they're anime movies, that's a difference too. Like you're putting all of your effort into one couple of hours rather than like a series. But yeah, like I'm sure I don't have to go into too many details about these movies because they're pretty. I mean, here's the thing: I don't think they really made their mark though on the American market.
I beg to
until
differ.
Much later.
Well, no, okay, yeah,
Yeah?
much later, probably, yeah.
Until much later, yeah, until like the 90s, 2000s.
Exactly, because I remember actually, and I was telling my husband this a few days ago, and he was like, "I don't remember this," but I actually remember as a child, like a little girl, watching Kiki's Delivery Service on Disney Channel.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that makes sense. Like, I have childhood memories as far as I can remember of watching My Neighbor Totoro. Like, that was one of my first movies that I remember having watched as a child. But again, like, I think that's why it struck me so much that Astro Boy had aired in the same year, because there are these amazing series or in movies that have just taken forever to permeate the American consciousness,
Yeah, sadly, it's like that.
yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that really strikes me too is, with the creation of HBO Max, they have a solid collection of Studio Ghibli movies.
Yeah, that's actually how the conversation came up with my husband and I, because
Really?
we were watching HBO Max and he was like, "Oh, what can we watch?" And he noticed the Ghibli collection and he's like, "Oh, which one do you recommend like we watch together?" I was like, "Bruh, like Kiki's Delivery Service was pretty good."
Oh my god, how are we literally the same person? Because that's like my favorite one.
Oh, okay, I won't go there. That's going a little too far. It's not my favorite Ghibli movie.
Ooh, wait, can we do a quick side note? Do we have a favorite Ghibli movie?
Yes.
Spirited Away, for sure.
How
Spirited Away.
dare you? No. How's Moving Castle?
Yeah, and see, for me, it's Kiki. Kiki's Delivery
Oh,
Service.
so sad. We were so close, Maddie. So close.
We were.
I will say, Spirited Away won the Academy Award for best
I don't care.
best animated motion picture. So
I don't care. I will fight.
You're not alone.
I will fight to the very death for Howl's Moving Castle. Hal is
Oh,
my husband of anime. Just saying.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a phenomenal movie. And as far as soundtrack goes, I would say Howl's Moving Castle is by far the favorite.
Yeah, beautiful. But yeah, so back on topic.
wait.
Anyway.
Just so the record shows, Spirited Away also has the best soundtrack.
Oh, get out of here.
You're
Get out of
right,
here.
though.
So I know that even though it wasn't your first pick, it was your second for all of them. So I what I find so interesting about, the Studio Ghibli movies is that I was watching one the other day, and for particularly the ones that came out in the 80s, you can't really tell that it's an 80s movie. If I had to guess, I would guess early 2000s, maybe late 90s. But
Right?
Yeah, totally. Like you could put a 90s
timeline.
Ghibli movie and an 80s Ghibli movie right next to each other. You will not be able to tell the difference because just the quality has stayed the same.
Oh yeah. And you know what, you guys, I actually lied. I totally forgot, but my favorite one is actually Whisper of the Heart. Kiki's is a close second.
I think you meant a close third, because Spirited Away is also. Yeah.
Oh yeah, haha.
Bruh, I'm gonna get out now.
I think we all know it's the best one.
Get out of here. Okay, anyway, so we can get Nigel to stop talking about Spirited Away. Maddie, I know you want Ghibli movies to represent for the 80s, but do you possibly have like an anime series that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, like definitely. I haven't seen it all the way through, but this is just the craziest anime to me that I really want to watch. And Jennifer and I were chatting about this earlier. It's for Ranma 1/2, and Jennifer, you're gonna have to help me out a bit here because this is on my to watch list, not on my have watched list.
What?
No, yeah. So this is an anime that I've wanted to watch since I found it from the trailer of the Pokemon movie, like the trailers that go at the beginning. And I've wanted to watch it ever since, but I've never actually sat down and done it. But like the plot is that you have you have this dude who's like a martial artist, and he's cursed to like turn into a girl when he touches cold water, I think. And then
Yeah, that's exactly it.
and then he only turns back when he touches hot water. And it's just it explores the predicaments of this situation, and like I just always found it very intriguing, and I don't want to say different, but definitely it had a vibe that I had never seen before at that time and still haven't really seen since.
Yeah, so like to give an example of like a difference, like the shoujo anime that I recommended, that's very shoujo. It's very romance heavy. Whereas Ranma Half Maddie, it's very much a rom-com. Like the comedy in it, it's so great because of the situational things that happen in the anime.
Oh my god, and I die for rom-coms, so I've been missing out. I know it.
Yeah, I know about Ranma half because I'm a huge Inuyasha fan, as I previously stated. And so when Inuyasha had its gap between like the original series and final act, I was kind of like, oh, so sad, it's gone. You know, what can I do to replace it? And so I looked up, you know, what the creator did, and I found Ranma half. I was like, this seems so cool. Let me give it a try. Watched it and freaking loved it. It's so amazing.
Can you explain what shoujo anime is?
Yeah, so we'll probably have an episode on shoujo anime in the future, but a quick synopsis is that shoujo anime is typically anime geared towards young females, like little girls.
Romance plots and like big sparkling eyes and
Yeah, because it's geared towards females, you know, they do have those aspects of like, you know, your main character's a female, you know, it's a lot of romance, and you know, it's a genre that is probably really significant in the manga industry, I have to say. I feel like it's more prominent in manga than anime.
That's so true. I feel like every season they just choose like one shoujo to make into an anime, and kind of the rest is in the shonen, kind of more boy oriented or like action oriented, or even just like family oriented.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to give the anime industry a little bit more credit than what you just did, Maddie.
Yeah, for sure.
They do more than just one, but what the anime industry does that annoys the living, like, it just annoys me so much, is that you know, when they have a shoujo anime, they'll cut the anime short to where you have to read the manga to figure out what happens next.
That is so true. And that's why this is a tangent just a little bit. That's why I'm so excited that Fruits Basket is finally being all the way done to the end.
Girl, yes, you have no idea. But yeah, so we'll talk about the shoujo aspect more in a separate episode. But yeah, so that's what shoujo is. And so that's why Maddie's recommendation for Ranma half is very much a good shoujo from the 80s recommendation. It still lives up to the name. You could buy it on DVD right now. Like, it still holds up today.
All right. So I have something that does not fall into the category of shoujo, and it's also a movie, but it is Akira, or as we might know it, Akira.
Ooh, that is a classic.
That there is a point, I believe, at least in terms of American anime fans and the American anime conscious, of there's a before Akira and a after Akira. That movie was so influential to so many people. Even if you haven't seen it, you are aware that it exists.
Yeah, because I'm one of those people.
Really?
Yeah, dude. Okay, so I have this issue. Like, if people keep bugging me to watch something,
I'm the same way.
It goes down on my list. I'm like, dude, if you keep on bugging me, I'm not gonna watch it. One day I will watch it. Just I haven't gotten around to it. Just because I try to. It's so hard, guys. Like, to keep up with modern anime and to like go back and watch other things. It's so hard to balance the two.
Oh yeah. Like, pro tips from Crew of Japan podcast. If you want somebody to watch something, just like no bugging.
Yeah. Like, tell me once, okay, I'll put it on my plan to watch list. Other than that, stop.
You gotta be subtle.
I understand that, because like it's the same for me. So what I would actually recommend is if you don't feel like watching it, there is a manga. It's not really talked about as much as the movie, but the manga is just as excellent.
Yeah, I've seen it on the bookshelves.
Is it adopted from the manga, or is the manga from the movie?
The movie was adapted from the manga.
Okay. Same as always, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the gist of it, honestly. I mean, it's been around for so long, and it's just been brought up so many times, and so many people know about it. Like, I know it's probably one of the greatest sci-fi movies of anime.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to spoil the movie since neither of you have seen it, and there's many people out there who actually haven't. I think from our generation, at least, I'd be willing to bet that there's a lot of people who have. But from the current generation, people who were born, let's say maybe 2005 and beyond, a lot of those anime fans have not seen Akira.
Probably
So
not.
it's still, I think, it's as fresh as ever because of that. And the story is amazing. And I'll leave it at that. We couldn't have this episode and not mention it in the nostalgic area.
Well, definitely. And not only that, but Akira kind of has its own little superpower. Do y'all know what I'm talking about?
No.
I'm talking about its amazing ability to predict future events.
Oh my.
Nigel, do you know what I'm talking about?
In the movie, it's like 1988 and the government drops a nuclear bomb on society. So I hope I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I read an article and I thought it was fascinating. That's probably one of the only reasons why I want to watch it is because it like predicted that the Tokyo Olympics would get canceled.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's
yeah, that's
incredible.
pretty sneaky.
Oh my
Not
gosh.
sneaky, but that's pretty random.
Wow.
So Akira is kind of like the Simpsons of Japan. It predicts the future.
Very interesting.
Yeah, because the modern, like the story that you're following in Akira takes place in 2019. So yeah, there are a lot of things. I'm sure if you go back, you would be like, whoa, wait a second. That's a cell phone? We have cell phones now? So I'm sure there's actually, like you said, just like The Simpsons, there's so many things you could probably go back and see that it predicted correctly.
So I know that obviously I'm seeing a pattern here. We're more pro movies than anime series, but Nigel, do you maybe have an anime series that you could share with our listeners that's from the 80s?
Yeah, I really I would love to say Neon Genesis Evangelion, but I think it actually falls outside of this time range. But it is worthy to mention Gunbuster, which was kind of like its predecessor, and it was actually made by the same creator. But what I would actually choose for this period is the original Dragon Ball. It aired from 86 to, I believe, 89, and not enough can be said about how important and massive this series is. So there's not much really introduction or detail that needs to be said. We all know what Dragon Ball is, and its impact is still being felt today. The content is still evergreen as ever, and yeah, you all know Dragon Ball.
Nice.
Okay. So to wrap up this episode, I kind of want to discuss, how all these anime that we discussed, how they stand up today. Are we still watching them today, and who is? And then, will they eventually be forgotten? What do y'all think, guys?
I think certainly the Studio Ghibli movies are timeless. You can watch those at any point. In fact, I just watched one yesterday from the 80s. So
Which one?
Nausicaa, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's always a good time for those. The same goes for Dragon Ball. The original Dragon Ball is just as evergreen today as it was then. And I would argue the same for Akira, and Astro Boy is, I think, one of the few that is probably a little too dated these days.
Yeah.
And at the same time, though, there's an element of all of them that will never die because they've set so much of the tone for what we have today. They're the trailblazers. They're the inspiration sources. And I think if history has anything to show us, it's that we'll always keep going back. Like for all we know, there'll be because didn't they just remake Astro Boy into like an American movie or something like that? You just never know what inspiration is going to come forth in the next decade or 5.
But I know for a fact that, I don't know if y'all have noticed this, but America has been in this phase of, hey, let's take this old thing and remake it. Because my suggestion, Saint Seiya, Knights of the Zodiac, just got a remake from Netflix.
Did it really?
Yes. I'm not going to watch it because I'm not into the CGI kind of 3D animation. Yeah. But, Valid. And, congrats to Saint Seiya for getting a remake for the new generation to watch. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a possibility in the future too, if more anime get remade.
Yeah, like in that way, it'll never really die.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how I could see something like an Astro Boy, definitely. Like you mentioned, I could definitely see something like Astro Boy being adapted for the modern audience now, tomorrow, and well into the future. Because it also is a story that is timeless as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And there definitely is that nostalgia value of the old animes. And I think they'll never not be available for those who do want to seek them out.
Yeah, because, it was such a great time for anime. It used to be called the Golden Age. And that's something that I wanted to discuss, just mention here, is that, in the 90s, this was considered the golden age of anime. But as time kept going, now the golden age is that 90s, early to mid 2000s. So that's what our next episode for anime is going to be about, is this golden age of the 90s and early to mid 2000s. But I'm going to wrap up this episode today.
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
That's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning into the Crew of Japan podcast. This week, we challenge you to go back in time and watch an anime series, either that we discussed on the show today or one that is from a similar time period. Share your favorite anime from this past with us on our social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter at Crew of Japan podcast. While you're there, follow and let us know how you are enjoying the podcast. And that's it for today. Until next time.